Valley Eastern Water Agency. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller.
Here.
Division 5, Robert Paris.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
Division 1, Shelley Sorsable.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Dwayne Chisholm.
Here.
Attorney Markman.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Thank you very much. Item 3, voluntary public roll call. If any member of the public wishes to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so now.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
All right, Vince.
John Eucasted.
Now, John.
Jack Sakis, White Fence 3.
Thank you.
John Joyce, Lake Los Angeles News.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Item 4, public comments and period open to the public. If anyone wishes to address the board on any item not on the agenda, please feel free to do so now. If there are none, may I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
Director Lane also moved, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, this is Rob. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Item 6, new business. 6A1, presentation on upcoming projects and new developments within the city of Palmdale. Mr. Luis Garibay, City of Palmdale. Dwayne?
Yes, we have present tonight Louis Garibay. He's with the City of Palmdale. He's the Economic Development Manager, and he has a short presentation to provide the board with some of the good things that are going on in Palmdale. So,
thank you very much.
Welcome, Mr. Garibay.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, directors, the staff. We appreciate the opportunity. As Dwayne said, my name is Luis Garibay. I am the Director of Economic and Community Development at the City of Palmdale. We really appreciate the opportunity to come today and share a little bit about some of the exciting things that are happening in the City of Palmdale and some of the new development and growth that we foresee happening over the next few years. Is the presentation perfect? So even through COVID, the city went through and had quite a bit of activity over the last couple of years. We actually had record-breaking number of building permits issues and inspections, and even early on in 2022, we're on track to exceed some of those numbers. Just from 2020 to 2021, we had about a 24% increase in the number of building permits issued. So again, COVID, although it slowed us down a little bit in terms of the activity, and in development, it definitely didn't slow down. And again, we continue to see that activity through the end of 2022, and we should be at those same numbers by the end of the year. One of the things that we're proud of that we saw during this time and continue to see moving forward is kind of this retail renaissance. Smaller businesses, retail businesses coming in to the City of Palmdale and obviously throughout the Antelope Valley. Just last year, we had about 335 new businesses that opened up. This included 2 new hotels and several new restaurants throughout the community. They included both new ground-up construction and then some that were filling in existing vacancy spaces. So again, both good uses for that. And you can see some of the new businesses that have either recently opened or will be opening before the end of this year. And they were all over the city. It wasn't just in one area, again, spread out to the east side, west side, mall area, north and south. A lot of this development has been happening and will continue to happen as we move forward through the rest of the year. One of the big things that we also saw is obviously a big increase in need for new housing opportunity or new housing stock throughout the community. And that's something that the city staff has been working with a variety of developers to try to bring some of this new product to market. And what we anticipate that are either already under construction or planned for construction before the end of the year is about a little over 2,000 single-family homes. And one of the things that the focuses of the city of Palmdale that is trying to create a diverse type of housing stock. So we're going to be seeing a lot more in terms of apartments and townhomes to help meet the needs of some of these new engineers that are locating out of town, coming in from out of the area that may not want the single-family residential home, to give them some options, some amenities. One of the more exciting apartment townhome projects that's going to be happening is right across from the AV Mall on the northwest corner of Rancho Vista Boulevard and 15th Street West. It's a little over 300 market rate apartment project and some townhomes along there. It'll be right adjacent to some new commercial opportunities as well on that hard corner there by the mall. So again, a diverse amount of housing and a lot of that are either already under construction or we anticipate will begin construction before the end of this year. As you can see from the map, and I apologize, it is a little bit small, but you can see that the housing stock is actually spread out throughout the entire Palmdale area there, both east and west side, and again, different types of housing. One of the things that the map also shows is some of the longer term projects. I know we've been talking about Anaverdi and Ritter Ranch and some of those phases, but actually projects like those have come back to life. Both of those projects recently had phases approved just within the last few months. And there's several builders that have already expressed interest and are working with the landowners to get those projects to market and started under construction. Along with the housing, we've seen quite a bit of new large-scale businesses interested, expanding, and coming into Palmdale and really the greater Antelope Valley. Northrop recently expanded on a facility off-site with Plant 42. Lockheed Martin, or if you've had a chance to drive by and see their beautiful new 200,000 square foot advanced manufacturing facility there at Plant 42. Again, a lot of these businesses are continuing to expand and looking at Palmdale as a great location for their business. The industrial front, there's quite a bit of activity and interest in the area. There just isn't a lot of space in the greater Los Angeles Basin Inland Empire for large-scale warehouse. You're actually seeing quite a bit of development out even in the Santa Clarita and San Fernando Valley that's pushing a lot of growth this way, and that's kind of been the pattern historically for Palmdale and the Antelope Valley in general. But just here, you see well over 10 million square feet of new industrial space that's planned. Most of this is from warehouse, logistics, light manufacturing, and one of the things that we're seeing quite a bit now is an interest in film, studio space. Again, coming from the Santa Clarita, San Fernando Valleys, a lot of this larger industrial space is now, they've run out of room. So they're looking at these areas to do prop houses, sound studios, and film spaces. So they basically need large empty warehouses. So they're looking at the Antelope Valley and Palmdale, and we're working with a variety of developers to try to develop multiple sites, as you can see from the map here, to bring some of that product to market quickly. One of the larger projects is a new business park. The city has partnered with a group called the Covington Group to develop a little over 5-6 million square feet of new industrial space. This is obviously not going to be all done at the same time. It will be phased, but that first phase will include about a little over 2 million square feet of new industrial space. And this is located on the southeast corner of Sierra Highway and Avenue M, just north of Plant 42. So the idea is to try to build some space to help support the operations at Plant 42, allow some of those contractors on base or even the military to continue to grow. And one of the things that the city is really focusing on as well is on the commercial space, the new kind of the next level of commercial space development and manufacturing. So a lot of these companies now from the SpaceX, Blue Origin, and those like are moving their manufacturing operations out of state completely. So we hope that we can make the pitch to try to keep their operations close to their headquarters, which are normally in El Segundo, LA areas, so that they don't have to get on a plane to go visit their manufacturing facilities. They're still here in Southern California and LA County and very close. And it makes a lot of sense in terms of the long-term growth and development around Plant 42. We want to protect that area as much as possible. We understand the jobs and the economic impact that the area has on the entire Antelope Valley and the region. So we want to make sure that we're building similar types of uses to make sure that encroachment doesn't happen around that area, because that is obviously a very viable and important resource for the entire community.
So we're retaining those manufacturing, there's not much, most all those aerospace manufacturing, there's not much chance of them leaving?
So right now, between Northrop Grumman and at least Lockheed, there's probably a decade worth of projects that, and their big problem right now is finding enough the workforce to support their operations. We work with them on trying to hire and attract and do some of these things to bring some of these young engineers and staff in manufacturing that is needed to support their operations. So again, there's a lot of work to be done. The biggest challenge is not them wanting to leave. It's really more, how do we help them continue to growth there and then be competitive for future contracts as we go down the line. So again, just at a very high level, I don't want to take too much of your time, but just a little brief overview, a high level summary of kind of some of the things that are happening in Palmdale, both from a commercial and from industrial standpoint. Again, we're geared up now because we anticipate this next year. We'll be very busy from an entitlement standpoint and then also from a construction. Even with all the variables with interest rates and prices for materials and labor and all those things, again, there's still a large need for businesses to continue to grow and expand. And we think Palmdale is a perfect place for them to do that. So we continue to work through them. The city of Palmdale was very fortunate just recently to be awarded the most business-friendly city in all of LA County. And we take a lot of pride in our ability to get projects through the entitlement process, get them going, and support the businesses, not only the ones that are already here, but also helping those that want to continue to grow and expand their footprint here in Palmdale. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, this is Director Donato. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First one is, what's going on with River Ranch? It's on, it's off, it's on, it's on. What is going on with that?
So all the tentative track, or the first, for phase one, the multiple tentative track backs were approved by council a few months ago. So right now they're working through the entitlement. There's a lot of offsite improvements that need to be done. The expansion of Elizabeth Lake Road, there's some water issues that they got to work through, fire station and some other things. So they're still moving forward. Again, they're not going to break ground probably until next year, but they're still moving forward and very excited to get that first phase going.
Okay, thank you. Second question. I was told by a couple of engineers that there was works on a regional over on the southeast corner of Sierra Highway near that industrial project you were talking about. Is there any updates on that possibility?
Say that again.
The regional airport.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any more information on the southeast corner of Sierra Highway where you're building the industrial buildings?
Yeah.
I was told by a couple of people that looks like there's a project in process to build a small regional there.
Yeah. So the city is still working through with the Air Force to try to develop a joint use agreement so that we can use the runway for commercial. Actually, as part of that business park, what we didn't show is a little over 100 acres of land that's still available that we've set aside specifically for the future Palmdale terminal. So again, it's dealing with the government. Sometimes it takes time. So we're still going through that process, and I think the long-term goal is to still get that operations. Based on our research and some of the studies that we've had done, there's definitely a need for it for the area, and just between Edwards Air Force Base and Plant 42, there's enough business that's generated just from those two areas to support a smaller regional airport. Now, again, this isn't going to be an Ontario or Burbank size. At max, I think they're talking about maybe 6 flights a day out of that facility, maybe one carrier. But again, the alternative right now, and what we're hearing from a lot of the defense contractors is if they bring somebody in, they're flying them into LAX. They're usually either putting them up the night before in a hotel or the night before their flight just to make sure that they don't have to deal with the traffic. So this would be a much more convenient option for them and ultimately probably end up saving them a lot of money.
My 2 cents, I've flown every carrier that's come out of Plant 42. Make sure it's going eastbound, going to Frisco, going to frickin' LA. It doesn't work. It has to go eastbound.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I think part of the research that we've done and kind of where our focus has been is most of the destinations for the flights that would be generated at this area go to Florida, Texas, Virginia, DC area. As you can imagine, there's some on Washington State. So yeah, absolutely. I think the preferred choice is to have a connection over at DFW in Texas to kind of create that, make it an easier way as opposed to going to San Francisco or Vegas. I think this time around, what's a little bit different, where before in the past, the terminal building was actually located on LAWA property there. We had to work through them, and they were kind of the middle person in between. This facility would be completely off the LAWA property, owned by the city in some sort of joint partnership. So we would have a little more control on the who the operator is, where the locations are, and how the facility is ultimately built out.
Thank you.
On 10th Street, west and Avenue OEM, it was talked about a large warehouse, going in. What's the status?
They're still in escrow. They're moving through. One of the issues that's hindered, ironically, because it's showing out there on the screen, has been the Joshua Tree. The CDFW, through the state Department of Fish and Wildlife, haven't made a final decision on where the Joshua Tree will lie in terms of whether it'll be a protected species or considered an endangered species. So it has delayed some of these larger projects. So it is still moving forward. We were hoping that the construction will start before the end of the year.
This is Director Sorsable. You mentioned something about some housing that's going to be put up north of the mall, and you said that it was going to be market rate apartments. What does that mean?
Just market rate. So a lot of the multifamily projects that have been built in the region, at least recently, have been more affordable housing projects. So they've been limited to who can actually go and live in these facilities. So this, in terms of market rate, again, anybody could live there. There would be no restriction in terms of income. And again, the idea would be it would be a higher level product. And I know, again, for that specific project that you talked about, they're talking about enhanced amenities, because they're really going after those young engineers that don't want to rent a house. They don't need the space. They don't want to worry about maintaining a front and backyard, and having some amenities and things that they can walk to, which would be, in that case, right across the street.
Great, thank you.
Well, I want to piggyback on Director Sorsable. You also said in the same statement that there's going to be townhomes built in the same vicinity?
Yes.
Okay, how many?
Like 36, I believe. So there's about 300 apartments and then 36 townhomes.
Yeah. Is that area going to be gated?
Yes.
Well, it's about time. That's what we've needed some that for 15, 20 years. What about across the street from Bonds? I saw a sign go up there, City of Palmdale. What's going on with that project that was going to be a condo project?
Across the street from where?
Bonds, 30th and Rancho Vista. That big empty field.
On the south west corner?
Maybe the south. Yeah, but it's not really on the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's not a city project. There has been some recent conversations with the developer, just even as of a couple of weeks ago. There's definitely an interest to kind of bring that project back to life, and yeah, it's going through the entitlement process right now.
Yeah, because you have a sign. There's a sign up there right now. That's why I brought that up. In the City of Palmdale. Oh well, not city, but whoever this person is. They're like public hearing.
So there's I think it's two separate things. I think there's an actual project there or near there. I forget what the street is, but near that area, near that intersection, which is an actual project itself. The sign that you saw is probably for an amendment to the specific plan for that Rancho Vista area. So they're modifying some of the designations. They're doing some cleanup on that specific plan. So that's what that notice sign was for.
Okay. I just want to commend City of Palmdale. I have had so many people asking when they're going to build higher-end apartments, but most of all, townhomes or condominiums. I mean, like you just said, they want to downsize. A lot of the younger engineers today, they don't want houses. They want to travel. So we need those kind of housing.
Yeah, and especially now with what the price points are, what they are, and what people would consider entry level, no longer being truly an entry level price point, it just does provide an option for them. And hopefully, again, you get them here, they enjoy the experience, and then maybe they do make that long term investment to purchase a house, as they get older.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Garibay? If not, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Item number 7, consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's consent calendar?
This Director Donato, I'll move that we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
This is Director Sorsable, I'll second.
Was that Audrey?
Shelley.
It was Shelley.
It was Audrey, but I'll yield to Shelley.
Oh, sorry.
Roll call vote, please.
Larry Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Item 8A, Finance Committee. Director Donato, do you have a report?
Yes. The Finance Committee met yesterday and went over item 8A1, consider and possible action to approve purchase order with Core and Main Supply for purchase of 14-inch hydraulically dampened check valve for the central feed pump station in not to exceed the amount of $45,000. And I believe John's going to, Mr. Bozigan's going to give us a report on that.
And this, Dwayne, just to refresh the memory, we didn't have a chance to change the agenda since it was already out. Finance Committee, the not to exceed number would be $90,000 based on 2 pumps, just to make sure we have the accurate representation of on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Director Donato, and good evening to the board. So you're all familiar with the Roseman treatment plant. There are 4 high lift pumps that deliver water from the treatment plant up to the Mojave Tank Farm. These are large pumps. It's about a 300-foot lift. They're about 4,000 GPM pumps, so pretty good lift. Each pump is outfitted with as Director Donato said, a hydraulically dampened check valve, so that when the pump shut off and the water tries to reverse course, it doesn't slam and create a pressure surge in the central feeder, which could be pretty damaging. These pumps have all been rebuilt. The motors have been rebuilt. Now we're finding that the check valves have been in service for 40 years. And parts are no longer available, and one of them has failed, so we had to take that pump offline, so we're down to 3 pumps. So we solicited proposals for a check valve, hydraulically dampened check valve, from 3 of our large suppliers, Core and Main, R&B Automation, and Ferguson Supply. And due to a long lead time. This is probably 3 years ago. This was a 10-week item. It is, believe it or not, 10 months to get this. It's almost a year to get this check valve. So we explained this to the committee, and the recommendation from the committee was that, let's take a look operationally at these long lead items that could cause failure, that could prevent our efficiency of our operation. And let's get some of these items ordered since they take so long. So we took that to heart. We issued an addendum to the board agenda, and that's exactly what Dwayne said. We'd like to purchase 2 of these valves for a not to exceed amount of $90,000. That includes shipping. I think there's a picture in your board packet of these valves. They're pretty large, pretty heavy. So shipping is about $1,500 per valve. So we also, good committee recommendation, and Dwayne has directed us to look at our budget line by line. Let's go through it and let's look at items that could leave us, could cause failure and create problems for us. So that's what we're going to do. And when we approach the board at the July 19th workshop, we'll have some concrete numbers to recommend to make sure that our operation is efficient and no possibility of failure. So with that being said, we would ask the board to support awarding the proposal to Core and Main Supply for $90,000, not to exceed, for 2 of these 14-inch hydraulically dampened check valves. Be happy to answer any questions.
John, is that a very standard item? It's just hard to believe they wouldn't be available someplace in the United States.
Yeah, George, we think the same thing. We're finding that the most common things that we used to purchase are just not available. And valve manufacturers now, I don't know if it's due to lack of employees coming to work, whether it's raw materials, they're building these valves as they're ordered. They're not stocking them anymore. These specialty valves are just not stocked. So we were really surprised, but we called around, and our usual suppliers, R&B Automation, they propose on everything, and they just said it's such a long lead time, we can't even propose on it. So it's unfortunate, and we're just hoping, we all read the articles. We're hoping that maybe by 2023 things get back to somewhat normal, and maybe they will, but it might be even into 2024. It looks like. So, if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
We used to do a lot of work with clay valve, but
clay valve is the Cadillac of the industry. There's no doubt. They don't make this type of valve. They make pressure reducing valves. They do make check valves. This is a very specialized valve, and APCO, I believe, is the only one that makes this valve that we know of.
Do we have a motion to approve the board order?
Yeah, this Director Dotto, I'll move on board order 881 to approve the 14-inch. We're getting 2 of them. Is that right, John?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, for not to exceed 90,000. Okay.
This is Director Sourceable. I'll second.
Any more discussion or questions? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
yes.
Shelley Sourceable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, thank you. The measure passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Item 8B, High Desert Water Bank Committee. Director Donato, do you have a report?
Yes. The committee met on this. We had a preview of what's going on here with regarding having an overview of what our progress is during the High Desert Water Bank. And Justin can maybe elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, President Dias, members of the board, Director Donato. Thank you for the introduction. We have our standard monthly update tonight for the High Desert Water Bank project, followed by a couple of action items related to the most recently awarded construction project. So I'll jump right in. We always like to get started by reminding everybody about the project goals. You can see up at the top there, recharge and recovery of up to 70,000 acre feet per year with direct pump back to the state water project, and an overall storage capacity for the project of 280,000 acre feet. Short-term goals on the left-hand side there, what we're looking to accomplish over the next 3 months, continue down the path of finalizing some of the final land acquisitions, The contractor Blois, who's performing the aqueduct turnout work, should be able to set the cofferdam into the canal. Some of you may have seen that occur at the Upper Amargosa project. It was pretty cool to see them setting that in with the cranes. So we'll make sure we bring back some photos and video of that. Continued drilling of the recovery wells. Bakersfield Well and Pump is out there on site, and Tian Ing with Kennedy Jenks, who's on the line tonight, will have an update on the construction as far as that goes. And then, as you know, we recently awarded a construction contract to Nicholas Construction for the recharge basins and pipelines. So they should begin at least the grading aspects of those work within the next 3 months here. On the right-hand side, we've got a map. Excuse me while I grab the clicker. Just going to highlight some of the construction projects that we have. This is an updated version of the map from the last time, but it shows where the recharge basins are going to be graded under the contract that was recently let. We also have the location of our turnout that Blois Construction is actively working on. We also have the pilot recovery wells in yellow, 4 of them, which was completed in 2021, as well as you see these DP2. This is drilling package 2. Those are the wells that Bakersfield Well and Pump are currently working on. This one here has been completed, and the other 5 in black stars, there, are upcoming that they'll be moving on to now with this one complete. Moving into program management, you can see the team that we have working on the project across the top there. On the left-hand side, some of the activity that Kennedy Jenks has been working on with Avek staff as our program manager for the project. You can see they looked at the task order 3 for Stantec, reviewed and provided comments on that. That'll be, we'll have some more on that later on in the presentation. They continue to participate in our weekly or bi-weekly check-in calls with Southern California Edison to make sure we're on track to bring power to the site. Review and comment on a couple of technical memos, water quality treatment and groundwater modeling being produced by the Stantec team. Reviewing the pilot recovery well completion reports and all the documentation of how those wells were drilled and completed. They planned and led a recent internal high-density water bank workshop with AVEC staff and our project team, and that went really well. It was good to step back for a second, get an overall high look at where we're at and the schedule for the project. And they continue to participate in our progress meetings and track overall project progress. So Kennedy Jenks is doing a good job as AVEC's, or as an extension of AVEC staff on the project. On the right-hand side, you can see the upcoming board decisions and actions. We've got the land acquisitions I already mentioned, and then the 2 items on the agenda tonight, which are task orders 3 for Stantec's engineering services during construction and Kennedy Jenks's construction management contract related to the recharge basins and pipeline. We'll get into much more detail on those after the monthly update. Lost control of my, little delay there, excuse me. Section 3 is our engineering and field work. These are the items that Stantec, as our engineer of record, have been working on. They continue to review submittals from the contractor for the aqueduct turnout and turn-in construction project, continuing to coordinate with Southern California Edison on both temporary power and permanent power solutions for the site. They provided some final comments back to some late comments received from the Department of Water Resources for our turnout construction project, and then working on those technical memos and well completion reports that I mentioned previously. Next section, we'll get into construction, and at this point, I'll turn it over to Tian Ing to provide an update on how the construction is going out in the field. Tian?
Thank you, Justin. Good evening, presidents, directors, general managers, and my fellow team members. This evening here, we have 2 construction projects to update. The first one is the aqueduct turnout and turn-in project. From our last update, we reported that the contractor has submitted the DWR encroachment permit for DWR to review. Since then, DWR had provided review comments, and the contractor has addressed those comments and resubmitted on June 16th back to DWR for their review. Late today, we got an official word from DWR that they currently have no more comments, and they're working on issuing the permit through AVAC to the contractor so that we can start that part of the constructions. The contractor did not wait around. Since then, they have mobilized, and they also have delivered the cofferdam, and currently it's laid down on the AVAC's property and putting it together. So officially, they have started constructions June 20th of this month. Next slide, please, Justin. We have some photos, and we have a lot more once the construction get very active. And the two photos on your left is contractor. They work on the site to get their facility, their laydown yard and the trailer set up. The photos on the right-hand side is the cofferdam. They picked it up from Kern County Water Agency in pieces, and they lay it down. Now they're putting stuff together. Next slide, please. The second project is the well drilling, package number 2, Justin alluded to. The piezometer drilling has been completed, and currently what they're waiting is the concrete pad on top they need to install, and that should be done next week. They also done drilling the recovery well R3, and now they will start the well pumping test next week. Recovery well R2 is next. The schedule show they're going to start it next week, but it could start as early as this Thursday. Tomorrow we have our weekly progress meeting. We'll get a more refined schedule from the contractor. The remaining 4 wells, they haven't started drilling it yet. Next slide. We have 4 photos here. 2 on the left here are the drilling of the piezometers. As you can see, pictures on the left, you see the drill rig, and then there's wires, red wires going along with it. And the picture with the PVC tube tape, those are the pressure transducer. There are 4 of them on this project. They're located at 250 feet below, 500 feet below, 750 feet below, and 900 feet below. The 2 pictures on your right are the R3 drilling process, and the top one is being the drilling process, and the bottom right-hand corner is the drill fluids that comes out is being captured, contained, desilted, and so forth. So that pretty much concludes the construction update for June. Justin, back to you.
Great. Thank you, Tien. Are there any questions for Tien before we move on?
This is Director Miller. I have one question. Like, when they're doing the 1,200 feet on the well, how long does that process take on each well?
It varies. It could take up to 2 to 3 weeks, or it depends on the reaction of the ground and how difficult it is to drill. But the thing is, when they set a time, they can't stop. They will drill, continue to drill. Doesn't matter it's a holiday or Sunday until they get to the end of it. So it varies, to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Tien. Any further questions for Tien on the construction? All right, thank you, Tien. Good job. We'll move on to section 6 here, contracts. So this is a summary of the various contracts that AVEC has executed necessary to implement the project. Kenny Jenks is listed there at the top, as well as the 2 previous task orders for construction management issued associated with the 2 construction projects that Tien just talked about. And we've got Stantec's project design and engineering contract that we've entered into. followed by the two current construction projects going on right now with Blois and Bakersfield Well and Pump. And then after that, we've got the recently awarded Nicholas construction contract, and then 3 completed contracts associated with the project as well. You can see in the table the original contract amount, if there were any amendments, and then the total payout to date for each of those projects listed, along with the percentage of what that represents of the overall contract amount. Moving into the capital program account, this is the summary. Apologize if the font's a little small here, but a summary of the capital program account and the expenditures so far on the project. Bring your attention to the second from the bottom line, which is a recent deposit we received from Metropolitan Water District to reimburse this capital program account. And that included all expenses through the end of March. That was just over $1.1 million, which brings their total contributions to the project to just over $25 million so far. And then you can see the payments through June 20th here listed at the bottom, and a current account balance of just over $4.2 million there. So we've got 3 construction contracts underway now, and the progress payments for those will be coming in monthly. So we'll make sure we keep up with all the invoicing with Metropolitan to make sure that we've got plenty of float in our capital program account to pay for those invoices. All right. Moving into schedule, top pink purple area is the completed tasks, and the bottom is the upcoming tasks. You can see a lot of that having to do with the recharge package, which was awarded to Nicholas. And then at the bottom, continuing on with that, we had the 2 items that the committee looked at and are on the agenda for tonight. And the yellow is the committee, red is for the full board. So you can see the 2 task orders listed there that we'll consider tonight. And then the blue bar across the bottom represents the construction activity for the well drilling and the turnout construction, which is anticipated to continue on through the end of 2022. Other items for consideration or updates for the full board. We mentioned this to the High Desert Water Bank Committee. Part of the Antelope Valley Water Master's job is to review storage agreements for projects like these. So we will need to bring a storage agreement for the High Desert Water Bank project to the Water Master board as well. I wanted to make the board aware that we're planning to do that. We're going to put it together a presentation for them. We thought it would be a good idea to have them review the overall project, what it is, what the goals are, what the benefits are to the residents of the Antelope Valley and the groundwater basin as well. So we thought that would be helpful to give them that update. So we plan to do that fairly soon prior to the storage agreement going in there. And then section 9 is the board action items. We have the 2 task orders that we've mentioned. Those are coming up on the next couple of slides there. And I think we're ready to move on to, 8B2. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions about the monthly update before we move on if you'd like. Sounds good.
Okay, for the next item, I'm going to start it off here, and then I'll turn it back over to Justin to give some more particulars. But I thought that I owed the board a little bit of a discussion as to how these task orders were conceived, the reasons why we're pursuing them in this particular fashion, so that you have a good understanding of how this process works. I know there's some of you that had a lot of construction experience with the agency, and there's others that haven't had as much. So I thought it'd be good to go back and just kind of review this a little bit. So right now we have three construction contractors here. We got Nicholas, Bakerfield Well and Pump, and Blois Construction. And it's AVEC staff's responsibility and my responsibility as the chief engineer to make sure this project is built, appropriately and we're meeting all the professional standards that are required by my civil engineering license. So to assist the AVEC staff in being able to do that, we need assistance in both office engineering and also with field engineering. And office engineering was what we like to call is engineering services during construction, and field engineering is construction management. More fancy terms, but essentially what you have is you got some folks that work in the office as an extension of our engineering staff, and then the field engineering where we have people that come out and do the inspections and so forth. So we look into this a little bit further. Start off with the office engineering. We have a engineer of record, which is Santec, and what the office engineering does, or office engineer does, and it's a team, it's not just one person, of course, but they review all the submittals. So every single product or material that is used on this job has to be reviewed to make sure that it meets the quality, the specifications that are contained within the bidding documents. And so we'll have hundreds of submittals that'll come through this process, and each one of those has to be reviewed by the engineer. In addition to that, we review the request for information. So we will also get probably 100 or so requests for information these are just questions on the job, how they're asking that I don't understand how this works or how that works, or what did you mean by this, and so forth and so on. And the important thing to note here is that many of these requests for information is a potential change order or a basis for a change order that they may claim later. So it's important that these requests for information get thoroughly analyzed and reviewed by the engineer of record. And the reasons why this is not competitively bid, you can't competitively bid it and you get a second engineer on board. But unfortunately, it's been my experience that costs more because it takes time for someone that you would come in and bring in new to look at all the plans and specifications to get up to speed on all the things that are currently being done. Oftentimes having to talk to the original engineer as to what he really meant by this note or that note and so forth. So it's going to add time. And then probably the most important aspect is you lose accountability of the engineer of record. So if you have an engineer that's doing the design work, an engineer that does the review of all the requests for information, and it's all the same engineer that's reviewing all the submittals, then you don't have finger pointing going on between two engineers that say, I thought you meant this, and so forth and so on, and which I've experienced in the past. So it provides a greater continuity for the project. And so for that reason, that's why we're recommending that we move forward with the engineer, Santec, which is our engineer of record with regards to this project. Any questions as to that particular rationale? Okay, I'll move on to the field engineering. And in general, Justin will give you a little more detail with this, but the field engineering is the construction management. It's all the inspections, attending all the construction meetings, a lot of conflict resolution out in the field, scheduling, making sure things are on time, developing the progress payments, and probably the thing I know that's very important to our board is change order mitigation. So they're very active in making sure that the change orders that do become before the board justified and the reasons for those. Right. Oh, okay, one more. And so we did do a competitive bid for the field engineering, but rather than get a not to exceed cost, which would be almost impossible to do without or having a very tight scope of work, we did bid for hourly rates and qualifications to make sure that the whoever's going to be doing our construction management, that we have a set rate throughout the construction process, and that was competitively developed, and we have the right people with the right qualifications doing that work. And then we're using this task order process because one, it costs I believe it costs less in the long run. We have the same team that can watch all three contracts. That's saving us probably a couple $100,000 in this particular project, just where we are today. We also get much more accurate cost estimates of the construction management aspects because we have defined construction projects with the Nicholas project. We know exactly how long the schedule is now, how long it's going to be, so they can estimate their time much more accurately. And then it also provides better communications between the field engineering staff, the office engineering staff, and it just ends up with less mistakes. And once again, it's just our best defense to controlled change order requests if we have a real defined tight group with very, very knowledgeable about the project. So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Justin to give you more specifics about the two task orders, but wanted to provide this reasoning behind the approach that we're using here. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Hearing no additional questions for Mr. Chisholm, we will move into item 8B2, which is task order 3 for Stantec's engineering services during construction. And just starting with a little background, and I know we've mentioned this a couple of times already tonight, but on June 7th of this year, the board awarded the Stage 1 and Stage 2 recharge system improvements project to Nicholas Construction. And this is for the grading work on the site to make up all the recharge basins, as well as the recharge pipelines that go to those basins. And as Dwayne just mentioned, as typical of all projects, we do require support from the engineer of record. And it's important that it's engineer of record for the reasons that Dwayne just went through. But a review and approve submittals, shop drawings, respond to questions, design clarifications, and requests for information. And as Dwayne just mentioned, having these services being performed by the engineer of record keeps one party responsible and protects the agency by ensuring that the engineer, quote unquote, owns the design. Also included within this scope for Stantec are some geotechnical services, which are intended to support the initial geotechnical findings that were done early on during very early design, to ensure that no conditions have changed since that time and ensure that the project is being built on a sound foundation. So that way it's ensured that project's going to last us a long time. Stantec provided a proposal for these services in the amount of $720,742.35. That proposal was carefully reviewed and commented on and passed back around between AVAC staff and Kennedy Jenks. And ultimately, what we have tonight is a scope and fee, which is within the typical range for an expected construction project of this magnitude. And unless there are any further questions regarding the rationale or what they'll be doing for us, the recommendation from the High Desert Water Bank Committee and staff would be that we approve Stantec's Task Order 3 for engineering services during construction. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I know, Dwayne, you mentioned earlier about it might be more prudent not to go out to bid with them. It may be, but we don't know unless we go out to bid, how much more prudent it would be. We're surmising that. So if somebody came in that was considerably less, would you consider that?
It wouldn't change my recommendation to you.
It may mine.
I understand that. And I'm just stating the reasons to have the engineer of record on staff is pretty compelling.
But if they know that they're not going to be very competitive, I would not think, or at least they have the opportunity not to be competitive. And we don't know that, then maybe staff doesn't know that either.
Yes. Well, that's why we asked Kennedy Jenks, who's that works for Avek, to review all of the work that's being done by Santec.
And Kennedy Jenks, they've been hired a cat's back, on projects.
Right.
And we had information I remember from my time previously on the board. I think it cost the agency a lot of money. The East Side Water Treatment Plant was done the recharge was done very sloppily. And we had to go through and had a major amount of correction work to be done.
Right. You're correct.
And so I'm uncomfortable. I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for it, but if you have a competitive, bid, you can still make that choice, and they're going to be more. Santec is going to be more competitive in all likelihood. But if they know they've got that locked down, they're going to do. In all likelihood, they're not going to be as competitive as they would be if they knew other people were bidding on it. And so,
yeah, Director Lane, this is Director Sorsable. We had that same concern, and we talked about this extensively at our meeting. And it was brought to our attention that this did already go to bid in the beginning. The services that Stantec is providing us went to bid with several others, and we were given the rates. Is that, you want to explain that a little more, Dwayne?
Well, that makes a difference. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. I think we did go to bid to get Santec as our engineer, and that selection was done, at the beginning of the project. And so we do have those rates and everything that was done for that. I think what you're referring to, Director Sorsable, is the Kennedy Jenks task order that's coming up next, where we went out to bid to get hourly rates, and that was competitively bid against other firms that do similar work to get the appropriate hourly rates and the qualifications for the individuals. But both Stantec and Kennedy Jenks have gone through a competitive bid process in order to establish their rates that are utilized by the agency.
And the committee's looked at it, and I understand recommends it, staff recommends it, so I'm going to vote for it. But I think we need to look at those things closer, and maybe it was done under the competitive rate process. But I do remember Kennedy Jenks has cost us a lot of money in the past, and I think it was unnecessarily.
Yes, and I'm not here to defend Kennedy Jenks, but I did want to make the point that all of the repairs that were necessary for that work were done by Kennedy Jenks on their dime. Just so.
But it would not have been if we hadn't brought it to their attention. They would have very easily passed on it. That's what they were passing on it.
Okay.
I have a question. Didn't we have, because I attended it, didn't we have interviews with Santec in the director's room with the different companies to ask them questions if they could do it? Could give us an outline of how the performance was. What was that? Was that with them?
That was with them, and you I believe, Director Donato, you spent the full day listening to the 4 or 5 different engineers make their presentations as to how they would be designing the project, and we went through that process. And
now KJ was in that room too, because they were like the manager of this process. Is that correct?
Yes, Kennedy Jenks was in the room because they are helping the agency to represent us to make sure that the engineers that are talking to us and are telling us the truth and not extending costs or things. So they give that perspective.
When we came to the end result, wasn't it done like a grading system on the different organizations that were there, the engineering firms, why we came with Syntex?
Yeah, and also we went through a negotiation process where their original bid was knocked down by, I can't remember, it was several $1 million. Their initial amount was knocked down once we gone through this reiteration process to get a better understanding of what the scope of work was going to be. So,
well, and I concur with George, because over the years, we get people that win the bid, and all of a sudden they start coming with these different change orders, trying to use a system. And that was one of the things I brought up at that meeting. I didn't talk that much in that meeting, but just basically, I said I don't want to see change orders when it comes to with this agency in the future. So I know we thoroughly, to get the Centex, we did spend a lot of time that they were the ones we were going to use.
You're correct.
George, I don't and the committee asked the staff to bring this back to the board for this discussion, because I wasn't totally satisfied what I heard. Not doubting, but I didn't feel comfortable, and I wanted more input coming in from the board members, what their concerns might be. So I'm trying to figure out, George, what is your concern? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Hello?
Right, is that a question?
It was a question.
No, it's you, George. George, it's question you. I'm trying to figure out so I can have a better understanding what your concern is. What's Centex, or is it Kennedy Jenks?
Well, the bidding process, and again, I'm not on the committee, so I'm not directly involved with that, but most items you're going to get a more competitive unit price in the bidding. Then another item I think we have to watch, very, very close, especially on these amounts where they keep track of their own time. And I think that's probably cost us an untold amount of money in the past. And nobody's watching them, to my knowledge. And I think the staff does the best they can, but they turn in, people turn in for their time and the rates and what was done. And I think we've got to be very careful, and we have to make sure we have a procedure where that's looked at. But anyway, Frank, just like I say, hopefully we'll be okay. But it's a non-bid item for this project, it appears, and there's a lot of room that could be inflated cost. And I don't know that, but I'm just seeing the potential's there.
Okay, isn't that KJ's responsibility to make sure those costs are within line?
Correct. That's part of the construction management course, is to review that along with the staff to make sure that we have appropriate time that is consistent with the tasks that are at hand. So we're going to go through that and review it as we do with all the progress payments. We review all those. And that's why, in your construction management, you've got logs, you've got days, you've got who's there, who isn't there, how long they were there. All that's documented by the construction manager.
Are we on budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
Frank, we now have before us Board Order 8B2.
What'd you say?
We have Board Order 8B2 before us.
Yeah. So I'll move on. Board Order 8B2 regarding the task order for Syntex to provide engineering services during the construction for the project of High Desert Water Bank 22-01.
And this is Director Percival, second.
Thank you.
I got a question. Yeah, I do have a question. Now,
go ahead.
I see the board order here, but now I see $720,000. Is that supposed to be part of the board order?
Yes, it's contained in the board order.
Okay, should be in there. Okay.
Yeah, it is in the board order.
Good question. Are there any more questions? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes.
All right, thank you.
What's next?
Moving into item 8B3 is also task order number, there's a typo in here, but this is task order number 3 for Kennedy Jenks, actually to provide construction management services during construction for project 22-01, which is the same recharge basins and pipeline project. So this one, we do have a little bit of additional background here, and this is what Director Sorsabal, I think, was referring to. But in 2021, the board directed staff to undergo a competitive written request for proposals process for construction management services that would be needed to support the multiple construction packages for the High Desert Water Bank. Through this competitive process, the board selected the best qualified firm and established the rate schedule by which all future task orders would be based. And this, I'm jumping to the bottom bullet here real quickly, but Kennedy Jenks was the firm selected during this process, and the board authorized an agreement with Kennedy Jenks for on-call construction management support for the High Desert Water Bank back in November. I will note that during that competitive process that Kennedy Jenks wrote into their proposal not to increase their rates for the 3-year term of this agreement. So there is no inflation between their original rates and where we're standing today.
And we have a copy of that with a competitive bid.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to, hopefully you can present it to the board. Even though it was done sometime ago, it might refresh the board's memory.
Yeah.
Or at least my memory.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I know we had invited 14 separate engineering firms to respond to our RFQ. We had some good participation at the pre-bid meeting, and then Kennedy Jenks's proposal was the only one that ended up being received. The other firms had fairly different reasons for why they did not propose, but ultimately, after talking with all the firms that were at the pre-bid meeting, then we were comfortable with the selection.
Is that strange they didn't present a bid?
No, I don't think it was. And we went through a very thorough selection process and talking with the other firms that didn't submit any bids, and every single one of them felt that there was no way that they could be competitive with the proposal that Kennedy Jenks could provide to us.
That's strange.
So
I hope they just didn't think it was a foregone conclusion.
No, that's not the feedback that we got. So the task order mechanism that Wayne outlined allows for the fees for each of these task orders to more accurately reflect the actual work that's going to be completed in the field. As he went through the beginning of this project, we've got multiple construction packages, and it's an unknown duration for each of those. It's unknown exactly what those projects are going to look like when they come out. And so by doing it this way, we're able to really pinpoint, the amount of of time that's going to be required by the CM team in the field. And it also allows them to identify opportunities for staffing efficiencies. As Dwayne mentioned, there's 3 construction projects going on at this point in time, and it may have not been known initially where those construction timelines were going to line up. And so at this point in time, we know that they can cover multiple projects with the same CM team. So we're ended up with a smaller team out there to cover multiple projects.
So I'm gonna piggyback on what George said. Staff, you got to help us out. I'm averaging 10, 12 meetings a month, and George is right. When you're talking about revisiting quotes and winning bids, we should have that as part of the presentation. Not that I'm doubting you, but it should be good for all of us and the public to see, why did KJ get picked and why did, Centex get picked? We're dealing with, this is a money game right now, cost, time, inflation, all this stuff, and we're also representing Metropolitan in this deal as our partner, and we want to make sure that we're doing a good job and have a good partnership with them as well. So I think it's a good idea. In the future, please come up with those numbers, and like George said, get to the the board, and so we can take a look at that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, and again, I'll reiterate, if there was a multiple people that bid, Kennedy Jenks, the Kennedy Jenks is the only one that put in a bid, I would wonder why. And it does not seem reasonable. It doesn't pass the smell test. And some of the people that didn't bid, it'd be nice to ask them, why they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
If there was 14 of them?
We invited 14 to propose, yeah. So, it was a very thorough process, and moving forward to where we're at today, we have 2 task orders awarded to Kennedy Jenks at this time. This would be the 3rd construction package that would require support under their on-call services agreement. And this is the Nicholas construction project that we've been discussing. KJ provided a scope of work and a fee to become task order 3. And this scope includes several of the things that Dwayne already mentioned, necessary to keep the construction project on schedule, ensure that the construction is consistent with the plans and specifications, document those construction activities for reporting and accurate pay processing. And as Dwayne also mentioned, it's very important to our board, it has a heavy emphasis on change management and working with the contractor daily to make sure that there are no change orders, or if they are, that they're absolutely 100% necessary. You can see a little bit more detailed breakdown of what their actual construction services include here. We've already gone through the majority of these. And I think one thing that Kennedy Jenks, Paul Chow, representative from there, wants to point out is the material testing on this particular contract, again, to make sure that this project is built in a safe manner and is going to last us a very long time. So this is about a 2-year construction duration. So it's a good amount of time out there. This is a large construction project. It's the biggest project that we've awarded to date on this project, and consists of the bulk of the grading activity and pipeline installation that's going to be required for this project to work. So moving into their task order, their proposed fee for these services is just under $2.2 million. As I mentioned before, this was based on the rates which were approved in the original master agreement. Looking at this, the fee is within the reasonable range expected for a construction project with this level of complexity and coordination. And Kennedy Jenks is committed to remaining within the budgeted amount for the project for construction management across all of the projects that have been let to date and are to come. And with that, obviously, we'll answer any final questions that you might have, but the recommendation from the committee and staff is that the board would award task order 3 to Kennedy Jenks for construction management services in the amount of $2,195,206.
The comment, Director Lane, this is a fast presentation, so I'm not really up on it, which I should be, or maybe we should talk about this a bit more in previous meetings, but I'll take my lead from the committee. They've had a chance to review it, and they recommend it, and I'm going to follow the recommendation. But I would like to the committee, I think we should have sometimes, if the board would wish them to come in, they would come in and make a presentation to the board occasionally. Is that a yes?
We can have that done, yeah.
Okay, this is Director Sorsable. Go ahead and move on this board order to award task order number 3 to Kennedy Jenks for construction management services in an amount of $2,195,206.
So Director Lynn, the committee recommends this. Is this correct?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we vetted it thoroughly. I feel as though we did.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
This is Director Knott. I'll second it.
Are there any further questions or discussion? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you.
Keith, can I make a comment real quick?
Certainly.
the committee, your recommendations well taken, George. That's why the committee is starting these workshops. And one of the things I wanted to do this year, over all the past years I've been on the board, I wanted to examine our budget way ahead of schedule and also the water rates, so we can determine what we're gonna, what's going on. Like I was talking to the committee yesterday, that when they come in with the inflation costs, I don't want them to come in with $6 a gallon. I want them to come in with $8 a gallon. Because when all our drivers and stuff are spending 50% more gas money than they did a year ago, I want to have at least know what we can do with our reserves. And we're gonna break it down, showing the revenue bonds versus the bonds versus the general fund. So we're gonna have that. These special meetings we're having, that stuff will be brought up, and you'll see at the same time we do. Is that correct, Dwayne?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anything else, Director?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was. I just want to make that statement. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 8C, Water Master Committee. Director Paris, do you have a report?
Yes, I'll have Matt take care of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Parrish. Good evening, President Dias and members of the board. So I'm going to present on item 8C1, which is consideration and possible action on resolution R22-16, providing for the disposition of banked or stored water in consideration of receipt of funds for the replacement water assessment.
So it's not the best.
So a little background before I get into that. On page 84 is a brief staff report, and on page 85 of your packet is the resolution being considered this evening. So a little background, as you know, we've done this several times now in the last 5 years, where the water master collects a fee from producers that pump more than their production right or available production from the basin. And the water master collects those funds, and then those funds go to the association and then distributed from there to the state water contractors of Avek, Palmdale, and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District. We have an agreement that we entered into between the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association and the water master that lays out the process for the water master to request replacement water from the state water contractors and its member agencies of Avek, Palmdale, and Little Rock. The water master serves as an agency that verifies the quantity and the location where the overpumping occurred. And the association develops a plan in coordination with the three member agencies to provide that replacement. So here's a map showing on the left the groundwater basin that's adjudicated within the AV Water Master. Then you can see the three state water contractor agency boundaries, AVAC being in red, Palmdale Water District outlined in blue, and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District is outlined in green. So you can see the overlap of the groundwater adjudicated basin within each of our respective boundaries. On the right is a summary or a table that shows the replacement water that we're dealing with under this resolution. You can see the producers that overpumped or pumped beyond their production right. We have three of them. The Antelope Valley High School District. There's a church that's on the southeast end of the valley. And there's also Phelan Pinyon Hills. As you know, Phelan has a long battle with the water master through the various court appearances where Phelan was challenging the replacement water assessment being imposed by the water master. So As you can see, the Antelope Valley Water Master was successful with that challenge from Phelan, and they ultimately paid up the past due assessments owed to the Water Master.
All of it?
All of it, yeah, they paid in full. Both the replacement waters and the Water Master. AVAC will be providing a line share of that 1,662 acre feet. AVAC will provide just under 1,452 acre feet. In exchange for providing that replacement water to the basin, AVAC will receive proceeds in the amount of $1,242,165.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we got this money. Are we able to buy above our allocation the replacement water?
Yeah, once AVAC receives those funds and we adopt the resolution and basically reduce our banked water supplies on the books of 1,451.99 acre feet, then we can do anything we'd like with those funds. So they're not restricted in any way.
Well, but don't we have to put it back in the ground, correct? The water?
The water is already in the ground. So this would be a paper transfer. We would deduct this amount from the West Side Water Bank. At the end of this calendar year, we'll have about 42,000 acre feet of banked imported water supplies. So this 1,451 acre feet will be deducted from our bank supplies in exchange for the fund.
Couldn't we run the amount of water they use and run it down Amagosa Creek this fall?
Yeah, whenever there's water available in later this year or future years, we can definitely do that with the proceeds that we receive.
Okay, please keep that in mind.
Yeah, thank you. So that is the recommendation is for the board to adopt resolution number R22-16, which basically documents that we will deduct 1,451.99 acre feet from our bank supplies in exchange for the funds.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, this is Rob. I move approval of resolution R22-16.
Thanks, Rob.
This is Director Miller. I'll second.
Thank you. Any more questions or discussion? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Anything more, Director Paris?
No, that's all, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item 8D, Planning Committee. Director Sorsabal, do you have a report?
I will give that to Dwayne.
Okay.
Yes, Director Sourceful, members of the board, we have a couple of items coming from the Planning Committee. One is a consideration of the resolution and possible action to approve the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. Once again, Matt Knudsen, the Assistant General Manager, has a report for the board.
All right, thank you, Dwayne. Good evening again, board. So I have just a few slides here. As you know, each year, the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Associations goes through a process to approve and recommend their fiscal year budget. They are on fiscal year beginning July 1 through June 30th of each year. And their budget is broken up into two categories. There's the general fund, which is split evenly between the three member agencies of Palmdale, Little Rock, and AVAC. And the general fund covers staff time, their liability insurance, the website maintenance, any contracted services, the annual audit, etc. So the association met on June 9th to consider their fiscal year 2022-23 budget, and the commissioners adopted the general operating budget in the amount of $30,000. Per the bylaws of the association, as I mentioned previously, the first $30,000 of the general operating budget is split evenly. So AVEC's share of the general operating budget would be $10,000. And then secondly, they at the same time considered their restricted fund budget. The restricted budget is split based on each of the agencies' Table A percentages. So therefore, AVEC having the lion's share of that, our share is 85.7% of the overall budget. Both of these budgets have to be adopted not only by the commissioners, but by each of the member agencies by resolution. So that is why we are presenting it this evening for the AVEC board to consider adoption of the resolution. Now I wanted to provide a little more detail on the restricted funds for the association. That's made up of our contribution towards the USGS expense for the groundwater monitoring, to monitor the groundwater levels as well as water quality in the basin, as we've done for numerous years here in the Valley. On the table here, you can see got a lot of colors, but breaks it down. The blue section on the far left shows the different periods of the USGS contracts, shows some history for past 5 years or so. And I show this just to remind everybody that we made a switch a couple years ago from where the association was holding the contract with the USGS to having the Antelope Valley Water Master hold the contract with the USGS. Since the Water Master is the primary beneficiary of the groundwater level data that is collected under this program, we thought that was appropriate for it to be administered by the Water Master versus the association. Then you can see the various contracts amount with the USGS program. The kind of in the middle, the orangish color shows at 50% contribution what the association's share of the USGS contract amounts have been, kind of ranging from $30,000 to $36,000 currently. The next two columns to the right just shows when AVEC paid our share of that 50% to the association. Then the green section shows the 25% share that is coming through the Antelope Valley IRWIMP group. This is a group made up of 11 agencies and public agencies here in the Valley, both cities, the larger water agencies, the sanitation district, etc.
Is that fairly new in the last few years?
Yeah, that's fairly new. I think that started in 2017, Director Lane. So the Antelope Valley IRWIMP group is picking up 25% of this cost. And then, of course, the Water Master is continuing to participate in the program and pick up their 25% as well. So that's really helped out the association and AVEC, particularly because we're picking up 85% of the association cost. So based on that, I want to go back to this. So the association, a couple weeks ago, when they approved this budget, they're late in adopting the restricted funds for the current fiscal year, 2021-22. So therefore, they recommended adopting both the current fiscal and next fiscal together with one motion. So therefore, we're asking AVEC board to consider approval of both the 2021-22 fiscal budget as well as the 2022-23 fiscal budget for the USGS program. So what that that means for AVAC is, as I mentioned, $10,000 for the general operating budget, as well as $61,704 for AVAC share for the 2 fiscal years budgets for the association. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that is the recommendation. Is my mic on?
Are there any questions for Matt?
This is Director Miller. On Matt, on the restricted funds for 21-22, is what was paid, because it was running in a negative, it looks like that, for that year.
So, Director
Why
Miller,
is it showing
are you looking at in your board packet? You're probably looking at
in the board packet.
Yeah, on page 94. It does show they were running negative, but on the books it's negative, but the USGS has typically been really late in invoicing for their quarterly payments. So from a cash flow, it hasn't affected the association.
Okay, so payments were made. There's an invoice outstanding. Is that what it is? There were contributions made towards the invoice, or is it just because it wasn't invoiced yet?
Yeah, because it wasn't invoiced. Correct. Yeah, and the payments have been made. If you look on the screen, by the Irwin Group as well as the Watermaster, they both paid their share.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, do I have a motion on Board Order 8D1?
Mr. President, this is Rob. I move approval of Board Order 8D1, Resolution R2217.
Thank you.
This is Director Sourcewell. I'll second.
Thank you. Any more questions? Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
What's next?
Yes, the next item under consideration is the possible action resolution R22-18, adopting the local hazard mitigation plan for the agency. And this is the final approval that's necessary to bring the agency in compliance with all of the emergency response and local hazard mitigation plan standards that are necessary for the agency to look into future grants that may be available through the California Office of Emergency Services in order to help mitigate our local hazards. So with that, I'll turn it over to Justin and give you a staff report with this particular item.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Dwayne. Good evening again. No slides for this. There is a staff report included within your packet. As Dwayne mentioned, this is the final step to finalizing our local hazard mitigation plan. Just a little bit of background. We hired R.E. Patterson and Associates back in January of 2021 to begin walking us through the process for creating this plan. As we've done that, we've had 4 what we call technical advisory committee meetings, which are made up of AVAC staff members led by the consultant. We've also had 2 public advisory committees where we invited stakeholders to participate in a review of the plan and provide comments that they felt might be necessary. We also had a 6-week public review period where this document was published on our website for review by the public. And we held 2 public board hearings on the project where the board opened it up for comment at the board level to hear any comments made by the public. We received no comments throughout any of that process. And after the last board hearing, we provided the plan in its draft form to California Office of Emergency Services as well as FEMA. They spent the last 4 months looking at this plan, provided very minor comments just related to a couple of maps that needed to be updated, and that was it. So with that, there haven't been any significant changes to the plan that was most recently reviewed. And the last step in this process, included within your board packet, you'll see a letter from FEMA, which states that our plan is ready for approval by FEMA, pending adoption by the board of directors. So tonight we are asking that the board consider adopting resolution R2218, which would adopt our local hazard mitigation plan. Once we have that approved, we can send it back to FEMA and they will formally accept our local hazard mitigation plan. So that would be the recommendation from the planning committee as well as staff.
This is Director Sorsabal. I'll make a motion to approve resolution R-22-18 adopting the local hazard mitigation plan for our agency.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. President, this Rob, I second the motion.
Thank you. Any more discussion or questions? If not, roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsabal,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes.
Thank you.
Anything else in your report, Director Sorsabal?
No, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 9, General Manager's Report. Dwayne?
Yes, thank you, Board President Dias, members of the board. This is the General Manager's Report for June 28, 2022. You can see that we have no rain anticipated coming from our north, as we might expect. This is our graph. You can see July looks our let's see if I can get this mouse to move here. There it is. So here's the July number. It's a tenth of an inch. So can't expect much coming out for the next 3 months until we start up again in late October, early November. As far as our reservoir capacities, you can see where we are here. This is Lake Orville, and then this is San Luis. The following slides, I'll show you a little more detail as to where we are and why we're in better conditions this year than we were last year, going into the new water year. And you can see, I just wanted to point out, there's a couple of, I can't get this mouse to work. Okay, well, there it is. A couple of the reservoirs are very, very full. This is Diamond Valley. Is very full. It's made up of Colorado River water and some state water that's involved in that. So Southern California has a full reservoir there at Diamond Valley. So I can't get this thing to work at all. Okay, so we're looking at the State Water Project, and this is the reservoir here. And you can see that we're in that blue line, and I don't know if I'm running out of battery or what. Anyway, the pointer doesn't seem to be working, but you can see the blue line there, and look at the variable bottom line is black, and that's where the reservoir levels were last year. And that's what got us into real trouble. So we're in better conditions as far as reservoir volumes going into our dry period. Will draw down, as you can see, but we won't be anywhere near where we were last year to start out the new year, which is a good sign. Similarly, you can see the same thing. It's occurring here with regards to San Luis Reservoir. We'll begin drafting now, but we'll be above reservoir levels that we saw last year. So Closer to home here, you can see with the warmer temperatures, we're beginning to utilize more water during this peak period. You got 18 million gallons a day going through our conventional treatment plants. On the geopurification side, you're looking at 15 million gallons a day. Our water banking is off with the exception of the East Side Water Bank, and that's just taken out the same period. From operation and maintenance point of view, we're using about 65% of our groundwater capacity, so we haven't peaked out yet. We anticipate that'll occur as the summer continues. And then we had the filter effluent valve replacement at the East Side Water Treatment Plant, and that'll start next week. And then we had those little freak electrical storms, and they caused some interruptions in some of our facilities, but we were able to make the electricians were able to make the repairs in-house. As far as water quality updates, the State Water Project Watershed Sanitary Survey has been updated. It's approximately 800 pages. Be happy to provide a copy for any of the directors who'd like to take a review of that. I'm joking, of course. And then we performed some maintenance on our the TOC analyzer, and then our water quality report's going out to the Division of Drinking Water. So as far as our schedules goes, next Monday is Independence Day. The office will be closed. We have a special board meeting workshop on the 19th. This is where we'll go over the operating budget in detail. And then the AB Water Master report meeting will be the 27th. My schedule is I will be in and around the office the next 2 weeks, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Dwayne? Hearing none, thank you, Dwayne. Item 10, do any of the directors have any reports to make? If not, we'll move along to item 11. Jim, is there an attorney's report tonight? Mr. Markman?
Sorry, I was muted. No, I have no report, Keith.
Okay, thank you. Item 12, are there any requests for future agenda items? We have no old business, so is there a reason to go into closed session tonight, Dwayne?
The only reason to go into closed session would be for item C if the board would like to do that, put it on the agenda.
Item 14C?
Right.
Okay. Do I have a motion to go into closed session for item 14C?
This is Director Miller. I'll move.
Mr. President, this is Rob. I second the motion.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes, and we'll go into closed session for item 14C as soon as Holly can make that transition.
Thank you. One moment.